Hi, Linda. I accidentally forgot to record the meeting, so I figured I would do a quick little video here for you so you can see what we went over, and then I'll also send you a small document which shows shortcut keys so that you can remember that a little bit easier, and it'll be a visual reminder for you. So kind of what we went over was how to take the white areas here and make them look white. So I'm going to work on this image that we were kind of working on. There we go. There. And right here are my adjustment layers that we had talked about. So what I'm going to do is on my background, I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and these are all the different adjustment layers that you can use, but the one that we want to use is the curves. So I'm going to push on the curves, and it's going to bring up your new adjustment layer right here. And right here is my curves adjustment layer. I'm going to click on here and drag up, and that's going to lighten the space that I want. Now, like you had said earlier, what that does is it lightens everything, and I don't want to lighten everything. I just want to lighten specific areas. So I'm going to push Control-I, and that is going to hide this layer because I just want just the countertop to be shown. So I can push W, which is your quick mask or quick selection, and see if it will do that real quick. It doesn't really get the best selection, but it's just, just for visual purposes for you to see. So I'm going to put my opacity maybe at like 50%, and I'm going to paint white because right here, it's a black. So when I paint white, it's going to lighten it. So there, it's lightened the countertop. Now I know you had said before, what happens if you need to make it brighter and it's not quite bright enough. Let me first go through the rest of the countertop and show you. So really quickly, I'm just going to paint over top of this. There we go. So we've lightened it. And let's say it's not bright enough. Say you need it brighter. What you can do is you can actually duplicate this layer, this curves layer. So it's brighten. So what I would do is just take this curves layer and click on it and drag it down. And you can drag it to right here, this new layer, and it's going to do exactly what it did before, so it's going to brighten it yet again. But say maybe it looks a little bit too bright. You can actually come up here and you can tone it down a little bit. So it's brighter than what it was before, but it's not, way too bright. There we go. And, say you wanted this area. I'm going to go ahead and call this lighten, kind of like we did earlier, so that you know that this adjustment, you are using it to lighten the areas. So I'm going to maybe lighten the ceiling to make it look a little bit more white. That wall, but I'm not, doing the cabinets because you don't want to lighten the cabinets too much. There we go. And then if you wanted your windows darker, you can either create a curves. I'm going to drag it to the top. And instead of going like towards the top or the middle, if you go down towards the bottom, that's going to really affect your darks. And if I push Control-I, it's going to hide what I just did, but what I wanted to do was darken it, so I'm going to name it darken so that we know what this layer is. So when I paint on here, it's going to darken spots. So now I'm going to paint white on here, and now that's going to darken areas that I need darken. And you're just going to want to, play around with your opacity and see what works the best. right here I've gone over top of the wood, so that doesn't make it look so good. So if I push X, it's going to toggle this, and it's going to paint black on it, so it's going to hide what I just did. So I can paint over the areas that I didn't want it to affect. There. So now if I click on this eyeball, it's going to show me, you know, how it affected it. And I can see down here it kind of got on my countertop a little bit, and I don't want that. So I can click on that again, and I'm just going to erase where I had accidentally darkened, because I don't want to darken that part. I just want to darken the windows. And same thing for the lighten. Let me see, it looks like it lightened a little bit above here. There. So, and now if I actually, this is kind of show you what the before and after is. If you go into the bottom in your background layer and you hold the Alt key and you click this eyeball, it's going to show you what the image looked like before and what it looks like after. So now before, you know, it's a little bit dark, and now we have lighter countertops and then darker windows. And, you know, that was just an example. You didn't have to darken the windows if you didn't need to. It didn't look like it, but we got those two things done. So I'm going to do one more. Great. Oh, I think I just got rid of it. We'll do this one right here. We're going to lighten this here. So a new curves adjustment layer, and drag it up, and that's about how bright, you know, maybe I want the countertop to be over here. So I'm going to push Control I or Command I. There we go, and it's hiding it now, and I'm going to put on here lighten so I remember what I did on that layer. And maybe use, you know, the polygonal lasso tool. There we go. Now it's gonna, if I brush, it's gonna brush just in that selection. So if I go up here to my brush, I'm on white because that's black. I want to do the opposite. I gotta make sure I'm clicked on that. Now if I paint, oops, I'm on black, and I'm at about 30% opacity. I'll change it to 60% so you can see a bigger difference. So now there we go. Now it's lightened just the countertop. And if it's too bright, you know, you can always come up here to your opacity and you can change, you can make it as bright as what you want it. 15%, 39, 64, if you want really bright, 100%. You can toggle back and forth to see what it looked like before and after. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to you, and then I'll send you that document. And then if you have any questions, just give me a call. Thanks, Linda. It is funny. Oops. No. Hi. Hi, Linda. I accidentally forgot to push record before the session, so I couldn't send you what I had gone through you with, but I can do a little quick review on this. So here we have our image, and what you want to do is lighten the countertop. So I'm going to do selection real quick on these countertops. there. And well, actually, if I do that, and I push, see when I I guess we could have done this earlier. If you make a selection first and then you push on the adjustment layer, what it's going to do is it's going to show it down here like that this is the area that you want to affect. That might be a little bit easier than going in and paintbrushing if you just select it first and then do this. That way it makes it a whole lot easier. And if you can click on your before and your after, it shows you what it looks like. Now I just did a really quick selection, so this looks, you know, like it's pointy when it should be rounded. So I can go in and fix stuff like that if I just go in and I paint the white on there because that's the area I want to affect. Oops. Let me see my brush. There we go, to make it a little bit more round. I'm going to put it at 100%. There we go. So you just want to be careful on like how your selection is made. Or so here, if I want to make sure this area back here gets selected, this is the countertop in the back. You want to lighten this too. Oops. And so this is just kind of like a quick selection because you can always go in and fine-tune the selection into the areas that maybe weren't selected as well. Okay, so I have that selected. Now if it's selected and I push on the curves adjustment layer instead of going in and painting it. Oops, actually I want to select this in here too. If I hold shift, it's going to add to it, this area. There we go. Now when I have it selected and I know I want to brighten it, if I just click on this again, it shows that whole area that I could selected. Now I want to brighten it. That might actually be easier for you. And then you can go through in the areas maybe that you didn't select as well. You can still go in and use your brush tool to either add or remove, because you're going to have these blunt edges, to just kind of smooth those out. And right here I got an area that I didn't want to get, so I'm going to paint black on it to hide it. That all there looks like it was selected good. And here I'm going to fix this little guy. And I missed this part of the counter right here, so if I just go and brush in real quick, the counter there. Oops, I'm pushing the wrong key. There we go. There we go. So now it's all brighter. That looks pretty good. And on these same layers, you can still go in, and they're both lightning layers. One was just for this area, one was for this. If I wanted to go in and I liked the brightness of this image here, and I wanted to do that to the ceiling and stuff as well, I can just click right on there, on that adjustment layer, and then just brush in the areas that I want to affect. Or you can do the lasso tool and select it, whatever is easier. So now I've got whiter walls, this, and you want to zoom in and zoom out so you can get, you know, as close as you need to, so you're not getting some of the other detailed areas. And here this is pretty straight line, so I'm just going to use this selection tool here. to get the majority of the area. There we go. There, so now just in that selection I can go in and I can paint white and it's going to affect just those areas. And maybe anything that you didn't want selected, you didn't want it to affect that area, like right here. If you push X, it'll toggle between black and you can darken that up again so it doesn't affect that. And it's only affecting the walls then. And I might lighten that just a little bit just so it blends in with the other part that I lightened. There we go. So now we have a lightened countertop and walls and ceiling and lightened there. So some of the things that I had told you earlier too, let's go back to what we had done earlier. If you wanted to lighten this, create a curves adjustment layer, drag it up, that's going to brighten it. And right here, double click, I'm going to call it lighten so I know what it is. And if I push Control I have to click on this first. If I push Control I, now it's going to hide everything. And so now I just want to affect, same concept, the same areas here. And if I push B, now I can paint in over top of that. Or, like I had just shown you earlier, you can select an area. So I can select this one right here. And do new adjustment layer. And now this adjustment layer is going to affect just the area that I had selected. So that can get brightened. Say if I wanted to select these counters, maybe I thought they were too light, I can select these, create a new adjustment layer, and it's going to put a mask around the area I just want to affect. Drag down. Oops. Gotta make sure you're on this. There we go. If I push Control and then I click in here, it's going to highlight that selection. And now I can drag down and it's just affecting the cabinets. So you can affect just specific areas. Let me see. So like the tea kettle. And you can make any kind of adjustment layer. So I'm going to select the tea kettle. Say I wanted to brighten it or lighten it, I can also use my levels. So now that I have it selected, anything that's inside this selection is going to be affected by this adjustment layer. So if I push my adjustment layer in the levels, now it has that little white area where it says anything that's in that white area is going to be affected. So it's just that tea kettle area. So you can pick and choose specific areas that you just want to affect. So now you can individualize everything. Say I wanted to darken the windows, I could select them just like this, push my curves. Now it has a curves layer on just the area I selected. So just that's going to be affected. So now we've got a window, microwave, the kettle. Oh, that one was the cabinets, but there we go. So you can see a noticeable difference. That little switch, and right there. And there we go. So that's kind of how you use the adjustment layers. And then, when you're just trying to remember what they do, like maybe I wanted to create one that, maybe I wanted to make everything really saturated in this picture. So I could go up here to my curves adjustment layer, vibrance, and it creates one. And I'm going to make sure it's on the top because it's going to show the top one first. And I want it really saturated just for exaggeration so you can see. Now if I hide it by pushing Control-I, now it's vibrance, or you can use it, saturation. Say I just wanted my cabinets very saturated. Now I can go in, and on the saturation layer, since I know that I've named it and I know what it does, I can go on white, and I can either draw in the saturation, or I'm sorry, brush it in, paintbrush it in, or I can create a lasso tool around the area I want to get, and I can paint it in. So you can either use your tool, or you can make the selection that you want and paint it in. So you can do just about anything with these adjustment layers. They're pretty helpful. It looks terrible right now, sorry, but just for educational purposes. There we go. So I'll get this all saved, I'll send it to you, and then I'll send you some detailed information about some buttons to remember. Thank you.